Hi Fude enthusiasts, welcome back to my channel. I'd love for you to comment, like, and subscribe if you find my content helpful. Before I begin today's video, I'd like to mention that Chikuhodo just came out with a new makie brush called the SKMK. I'm very tempted by it and will link it below if you're interested. It decreased from a quantity of 20 to 4 within a couple days, but they should be back ordered after that. I've been shopping my stash recently and thought it would be fun to share what I've been using over the past couple of months. Not everything is Fude or Chinese brushes because I do love myself some synthetics once in a while. I will typically use certain brushes for a while, then wash them and use a new group of brushes afterwards. I'll start with face brushes, then move on to eye brushes. Here is the Koyudo Golden Fox Momiji Makie powder brush. I hesitated to include this in the video because it's limited edition and sold out now, but I know there are people who are curious about Golden Fox, and Koyudo occasionally brings limited edition releases back like they did with the Canadian Scroll and White Canadian Scroll brushes. I'll just give a quick overview. The hairs are soft and the head is large and fluffy. It's definitely soft enough for pretty much every skin type unless you can't even use fox hair, which is the softest, if not the softest, next to White Canadian Squirrel and Red Squirrel. It feels nice swept across the face and during use. It applies powder with a smooth and light touch. It's a large brush, which means you can powder your face very quickly with it. I think it would make an excellent finishing brush because it's fluffy and fox hair gives a light finish. I have a Reddit fox hair guide that I'll link below if you're interested in the differences between fox hair and other hair types. Keep in mind that I got this brush after I wrote the guide. It doesn't make my heart sing or make me excited like the White Canadian Squirrel powder brush does though. I adore the White Canadian Squirrel powder brush, but everyone's different. Some people may think the opposite, especially if they prefer larger brushes. I wish the hairs were paired with a Radin handle, which I'll also link in the description box for comparison. That would make it more worth the 50,000 yen price tag for me. Anyway, take my opinion with a grain of salt and try it out if it interests you and if Koyudo re-releases it someday. Next is the Eihodo Sakura P-2. I still can't get over the beautiful colors and iridescence of the Sakura makie on the handle. I actually wish Chikuhodo's latest MK-SK brush could have had something similar with tons of iridescence, but instead of blue, I'd want a stunning light purple and pink Sakura design. That would be absolutely stunning and perfect in my eyes. Please make a purple and pink makie combo, Chikuhodo. Flat paddle shapes aren't my favorite, but I'll admit that it does feel lovely when swept across the face. It's a different feeling from using a round brush to buff with. Stock has decreased quite a bit since my last Eihodo makie video, so if you're interested in getting any, I'd get them sooner than later. A few of the P2 sold out, but I think this one is still available, as well as the RE25 ones, which have the same Sakura and Peony makie designs on the handles. Here's the Eihodo Round Grease Girl powder brush with the red handle. It's basically a Chikuhodo Artist Series powder brush with a round head instead of a flat one. The Artist RRP6 is a flat gray skull powder brush. This one is round, so it's just the round version of that brush, I think. It has medium density, leaning dense, and I love the shape and size. It feels lovely swirled around the face and applies powder smoothly. I love a lot of the reasonably priced Eihodo outlet brushes like this one that I picked up and would highly recommend them the next time CD Japan releases them. They've been releasing them every couple months or so over the past year and a half or so, which is a lot compared to the past. Next is the Eihodo Flat Gray Skull powder brush. It's a flat powder brush with a square head. I wasn't expecting to love it as much as I do since the stock image looked pretty different. It flares out a lot more post-wash and it's still small enough to get into my powders. It's on the small side. Here it is compared with the round handle powder brush on the right. To me, they're on the medium side, but they might be on the small side for people who like really big brushes. Here it is compared to the P2 on the right. So the outlet one is much smaller, but to me it's medium sized. It fits into Hourglass ALP with room to spare, so it'd be more of a blush brush for those of you who like big brushes. The density is on the medium side, and just like the previous round powder brush, it feels nice swept across the face and has no issues applying powder. Next is the Eihodo Candlestick Gray Scroll Highlight Brush. It's a candlestick highlight brush that is similar to the Z2 if I remember correctly, and the Surratt highlight brush. The Z2 is 38mm while this one is 37. but I like this one much more. It's pretty identical in shape and size to the Surratt highlight brush on the right, which I adore. The Surratt brush also has a 37mm hair length. It's dense and directional. I tried it with soft press highlights and it gives a soft finish, which is to be expected of grayscale hair. It can, however, maintain the metallic finish of the highlights. This is the Eihodo round grayscale blush brush with a short handle. It's a super cute round bunny tail blush brush. The hair length is 39mm and it's similar to the RC2 except that this one has a hair length of 33. It's also on the small side and has medium density. I really like how small and cute it is and also like how it applies blush. They all have soft hair and I'm really happy with them. These aren't available anymore, but I do recommend picking some up at the Grayscale outlet brushes whenever CG Japan releases more. I'll try to link some similar brushes below. This is the Cinkihodo J103. I like that the Saibikoho powder and blush brushes fluff up quite a bit after use. It's dense and fluffy. This isn't a review, but I wanted to mention that it has a hair length of 52mm. Personally, these Saibikoho brushes are more of everyday brushes I can use and don't have to baby because while they're soft, they're not as soft as the Shou Shou Lang and Chin's really fine batch of hairs. They're a level below those hairs. They're softer than current Fude Cinkihodo. Application-wise, the powder brush applies a medium layer of loose powder but can be built up. The hairs are resilient and while they pick up some of the base and get a little tacky, it's nowhere as bad as squirrel hair. Fox hair is in between goat and squirrel in terms of product and oil absorption, but softer than both, which means it provides a natural finish. I recommend fox hair if you dislike how much product and oils goat hair absorbs and clumpy squirrel hair gets with setting powder. I went off on a tangent, but once again, I also have a fox hair guide on the Fude subreddit. I'll link in the description box if you're interested. These are the J110 on the left and the G110 on the right. Both blushes would be suitable for people who like to build up the application over having lots of pigment at once. Even though this is an all-goat blush brush, it applies fairly softly due to the soft hairs. Back to the G110. This is a mix of Saibikoho and Grayscale hair. It's on the medium side of density and doesn't fluff up as much as the all-goat version due to the Grayscale mixed in. It's also quite soft and applies blush softly like the all-goat J110. I prefer it over the J110 because it feels softer, but overall I do like both. This is the Shou Shou Lang F03. It's a Saibikoho blush brush from their F series that launched last year. It's a flat shape with a pinched oval ferrule. This is actually the second one that I've used. The first one, along with the F02, which is the dense angled brush from the set, both had hair that wasn't as soft as the Saibikoho hairs from the other lines that I got prior to these. The hair on the first F02 and F03 that I had were in between Shou Shou Lang's Saibikoho from their green and black onyx series and their Saikoho. This one feels more in line with how their good Saibikoho batch should feel like. Remember, there's variances in softness when it comes to hair batches, and while Shou Shou Lang has become more consistent compared to the past, it's hard to have the hair feel exactly the same in every single batch. It's 24mm and it's also fluffier and more airy than my first one, which wasn't as fluffy, and that one was denser as well. In that aspect, this one gives a lighter blush finish and feels feathery. I like this one, but I prefer smaller blush brushes like these to be on the compact side to apply heavier, so I'd put it in a brush guard before using it next time after I've washed it. Here's the Zuvmor Z83. This series has glossy wooden handles and the hair on both of these brushes are made out of Cinkihodo. So I'm going to show the Z83 first and then the Z84 afterwards. It's an older series, so the hairs feel pretty soft compared to my first Saibikoho cheek brushes I got from the F series. This is pretty thin and airy. I tried it for highlight but didn't like how diffused and lightly it applied. It might be better for setting the under eyes, but I prefer using softer hair like Grayscale and Fox hair for that area. Here's the Z84. It's basically the Zuvmor version of the Hakuhodo J5521. It's a candlestick highlight brush with a round ferrule. It's on the large size for a highlight brush, so if you like targeted highlight, this one won't be for you. It's dense and soft. It applies cheekbone highlight strongly. Here's the Zuvmor Z10. It's easily one of my holy grails for cheekbone highlight. It's a mix of Grayscale and Saibikoho hair. It works well with pretty much all soft press powder formulas I've tried it with. This is also my go-to for formulas that I have a hard time with. The goat hair in this grabs and lays color and shimmer in a pigmented and beautiful way. This brush is in my Shou Shou Lang Zuvmor African Rosewood review video I'll add in a card above, so you can check that out along with other brushes I have from the line if you're interested. Here's the Shou Shou Lang Canadian Scroll Flat Blush Brush. I've showcased this in my previous video, but it's a flat blush brush with a rounded head. It doesn't have enough hair for my liking. I'd prefer it to be denser, but it's also not airy when being used. It's kind of like in that weird zone for me, and I don't really like the density. I think it's okay in terms of softness and blush application. There are better blush brushes out there. It applies blush in a targeted area, but doesn't give me the oomph I need since it applies more naturally compared to pigmented. I also find it to kind of give a patchy finish. Here's the MAC 137. This is the one with all goat hair and not the new one with synthetic hairs. I haven't used this in years because airy long brushes aren't my thing for blush, but it pairs nicely with some extremely pigmented blushes. I know MAC labels this as a blending brush while Hakuhodo labels theirs as a highlight brush, but I don't use it for either of those things. The goat hair version is discontinued now, but you can still get the Hakuhodo version. It's the G5537. Someone also asked me about NARS Exhibit A with this, so I took it out to try together. I left it in the brush guard, so it actually didn't apply Exhibit A well because it was too compact, so I'll have to try again. I used it with another highly pigmented blush after. It had fluffed out more and I liked it together. I can't say that I would highly recommend this or the Hakuhodo brush paired with the Exhibit A though. There's probably a better blush brush for it out there. Let's move on to synthetic brushes next. This is the Zoevo 118 bronzer brush. It's a round shape that can be used for both setting powder and bronzer. I like it for both. This is the Zoevo 108 Rose Golden Face Finish Brush. I've always been a fan of Zoevo's Rose Golden line. The rose gold ferrules and pink handles are such an adorable combo. This is a flat, immensely dense, and thick finishing brush. So thick and super dense. The description says, this go-to powder brush is firm and fluffy to apply, blend, and build your favorite powders. The hairs feel velvety and different from the hair on the bronzer brush. They're softer, and I prefer the hair on this brush over the bronzer brush, but I do prefer the shape of the bronzer brush over this one. So my perfect brush would be the bronzer brush with these hairs and this ferrule and handle combination. This brush confuses me because it's so incredibly dense that I cannot imagine using it for finishing. Instead of applying a soft layer of finishing powder on top of your base and other facial products, it will grab and remove them. I tried it for finishing and definitely prefer gray squirrel and fox hair over it because they don't eat as much product underneath. I also tried it for BB cream and didn't like it for that either. The description also includes, thanks to its large, flat, densely bound shape, it delivers seamless application of your favorite powder or powder bronzer. I can see it working for a pigmented bronzer finish. I prefer a diffused bronzer finish, but I'll have to give it a try with bronzer. I'm still trying to figure out what I'll use it for. Maybe it'll be good for patting away heavy blush, but then that'll just pat away my foundation as well. I'm not sure. Also, I personally think it's too big for contour. When I was checking the details for this brush, I noticed that the Zoevo website had some of this collection on sale and noted, get ready, something new is coming soon, say goodbye to selected brushes. This was a couple months ago. So why do good things always have to be discontinued? Here it is compared with the round bronzer brush on the right. So the bronzer brush on the right is more loosely packed compared to the densely packed one on the left. Here's the IT brushes for Ulta Angled Blush Brush number 227. I'm generally not a fan of angled brushes, but I heard great things about this one. The handle feels weighty and sleek. The head is very interesting. It's on the medium to dense side, but doesn't feel too dense when used. So you've got some looseness inside. It can apply blush both in diffused and targeted ways depending on the formula. It's soft and I think it would also work well with liquid and cream blushes. So next is the Real Techniques highlight brush. I've seen countless beauty gurus rave about this and use this over the years and finally got one to try out. The hairs aren't that soft compared to the IT brushes for Ulta brushes and the Zoevo Rose Golden brush. Since the head is more loosely packed, it applies highlighter in a diffused fashion, which I'm not a fan of. You'd like it if you like diffused highlight. Last in the synthetic face section is the Sedona Lace EB13. I've had this for years, but always found it too large for the crease. I used it for concealer recently, and it blended the concealer really well around my face. The head isn't too dense and has the perfect amount of flexibility to blend. It feels great used in gentle, circular motions to buff in the concealer. The synthetic hairs don't absorb as much product as a natural goat hair brush would. It blends product in without making it look thick or cakey. I much prefer using this type of brush for facial concealing over the dense, short, and round concealer brushes because I feel like those are so thick and inflexible that they end up moving the product underneath and the concealer ends up looking cakey. It's denser than the NYX Pro blending brush on the right, but less soft. You can also use the NYX for concealer. Lastly are the eye brushes. This is the Chikuhodo GSN9. It's a small and flat grayscale brush I use for the outer V and crease. I typically use dense round brushes for those areas, but this is the one brush that I don't mind using because it can apply a V shape on the outer corner. Here's my trusty Chikuhodo Z11. It's a round, fluffy grayscale blending brush that I can't bear to be without. I always have fun using it to blend due to its softness and blending ability. It doesn't overblend easily, but also doesn't take too much effort to blend out. I would advise against using thick cream or liquid bases as well as thick silicone primers when using this because the hairs will drag and tips will break off. Examples would be concealers, foundations, and the Smashbox eyeshadow primer. Here's the Eihodo Outlet Grayscale Round Blending Brush. This is similar to the Z11 in hair length, softness, shape, and size, except it's not as compact. Compact as in densely packed. It fluffs out a little bit more and is looser. You can see how it expands more than the Z11. Or my Z11 in particular. There might be one out there that's bundled like the Eihodo one, actually. It could be due to the bundling variants, but I do prefer the more compactness of the Z11 over this one. I think the Z11 blends better due to that. Here's the Eihodo Outlet Grayscale Large Pencil Brush. This one also looks like it came straight out of the Chikuhodo regular series. It's a dense, pointed pencil brush. I like it for applying shadow to the outer V. It lays down dark colors well. It's soft and not pokey at all. Here's the Eihodo Outlet Goat Flat Blender Brush with the red handle, and just like the other ones, I like the red handle, so I just went for those. This is the same shape as the Chikuhodo T7, except I think it's a little bit smaller. The T7 hairs are also silkier and the head doesn't feel as full as a result. I never liked the T7, but actually quite like this one because it's smaller and denser. I also like the red handle, but it's quite short, which means it'll be great for travel. It does get lost in my brush holder though, since it's so short. The hairs are soft, but it did come with a few blunt hair tips and one extremely coarse brown red hair which I plucked out. I do find that if I sweep too much with it, it ends up hurting my lids, so while it's soft, it's not the softest Cinkihodo eyeshadow brush out there. The coarser hairs enable it to grab and deposit product better than a silkier brush, but it's not as comfortable to use for sensitive skin. Double-edged sword. Next is the Eihodo Outlet Flat Pine Scroll Brush. I wasn't expecting much from this brush, but have been pleasantly surprised by it. Most pine scroll isn't soft to me, and there are only 2 other pine scroll eyeshadow brushes that I've liked enough to keep. This one is soft and didn't come with any prickly hair tips, so I got really lucky. I like to use it both for all over lid shading and brow bone highlight. I pretty much like most of the Eihodo outlet brushes that I've purchased and would be happy to get more next time if the prices are reasonable. CD Japan has been on an Eihodo outlet releasing frenzy. As much as I try to rotate and go through my collection, I am a creature of habit, so I tend to gravitate towards the same brushes, and it's really hard to stop using the ones that I love, like this F06 right here. This is the Shou Shou Lang F06. I love this round and dense tamage brush for the crease. Tamage is cat hair, but I'm not entirely sure what type of cat. I've owned other Chinese tamage brushes that were translated to lynx, and those are very soft and supple. The hairs are soft, smooth, and elastic. It's in the middle in terms of flexibility, not too firm or low in resistance. I looked up tamage, and the Bishodo Ueda website also mentions that the hair tips are spherical and that it offers excellent color payoff. I'm not entirely sure if the tips are spherical since they look like regular hair tips to me, but I do agree with the fact that it provides excellent color payoff. That's what I love about round, dense tamage brushes such as this one. It grabs and deposits matte shades perfectly without needing to use a blending brush afterwards. I generally prefer to dip into the product a couple times and get an ample amount of pigment on instead of gradually building up the color. I recommend going in with a light hand if you prefer to build it up. I don't like tamage for shimmers, metallics, or glitters because I think it excels at mattes, and there are other types of hair like goat that can apply other shades better. Of course, sometimes I use goat, but if I want a bam pigmented in your face finish, then I will use my finger. The Bishodo Uedo website also mentions that tamaga hairs are short in length, expensive, and requires technological capabilities, which is why it's not widely available. I'm guessing technological capabilities means a specific type of machine, technique, or craftsmanship. Here's the Zuvmor Z17. It's a tapered Saibikoho and grayscale mixed crease brush, and it's soft, but I don't have much use for it besides placing color with it because it doesn't blend well. I just use it. I suppose you can use it for nose contouring, but I don't really like to do that either. It's not something I'd reach for on a regular basis, honestly. I've also been using these 4 Takeda eyeshadow brushes recently, and I do have an Instagram post with these brushes as well from a couple months ago where I said the same things, or essentially the same things, but I'll just go over it in the video again. Takeda brush names are difficult for me to remember, so I'll just list the names in the description box. These are all made out of Canadian squirrel. I use the big tapered flat one on the left for all over lid color, and I would say it's my least favorite out of the bunch because it doesn't apply as pigmented as I'd like right off the bat, nor does it blend that smoothly, but everyone has different preferences and skin types, so it may actually work well for you. The second largest one, second from the left, is a medium-sized flat crease and blending brush. I use it for the crease. The second smallest one, second from the right, is a small flat precision brush that I use for the outer V. The pencil brush on the right is a pencil brush with a very fine tip. I have the most to say about this brush because I like it the most out of all 4. It's quite flexible but still provides excellent control and allows for precise placement on the bottom lash line. I find that most brushes don't have a fine enough tip to be able to apply to the bottom lash line this precisely and smoke it out without diffusing into a larger surface area. This one is definitely my favorite out of the 4, and then second place would have to be the second smallest one. And my third favorite is the second one from the left, and then, like I said earlier, the least favorite is the largest one. Just like with tamage hair, I predominantly use Canadian squirrel eyeshadow brushes with mattes because I don't find that they apply shimmers, metallics, or glitter well. I prefer goat and my fingers for those 3 latter formulas. Sometimes the flat ones don't disperse matte shadows smoothly, and I have to go in with a goat or scroll blending brush afterwards. Here's the NYX blending brush. This is one of my favorite eyeshadow blending brushes. I love to use it when I'm in a rush and don't know what to use to blend with. It's easy to grab out of a brush holder because most of the head is light colored. It blends effortlessly. It doesn't overblend, diffuse, or muddy the eyeshadow. It's super soft too. These are the Essence Eyeshadow, Crease, and Eye Blender brushes. I've read good things about Essence brushes and I love all brushes, from low to high end. The eyeshadow brush on the left is the flat medium-sized brush on the denser side. It's similar to the MAC 239 and Rephr 02. I prefer my fingers for intense shimmer and glittery shades, but this is for when I don't feel like using my fingers. I like this the most out of all the Essence brushes here. Next is the crease brush. It's a flat shape similar to the MAC 217 and Hakuhodo J5523. Sadly, this is one of the worst eyeshadow brushes I've come across. I used it with some matte shades, and because it's sparse on the top, not that dense, and poorly bundled, it doesn't cut it for grabbing product and depositing it. It's soft, but I think it's the least soft out of all the Essence brushes here. Needless to say, I'm underwhelmed by this brush and do not recommend it. The eye blender brush has a round shape but got severely smushed in the package it came in. It might be permanently smushed at this point. I'll have to try putting it in a brush guard to see if I can fix it. It's not dense but does a decent job at blending. It's soft as well. I prefer the NYX blending brush over this one as that one is denser and blends better. I think old Real Technique brush heads are better overall for application compared to these, but the rubbery bottom parts of the handles get tacky like NARS packaging, which I don't like. This is the Rephr 29 liner brush. It's a flat, firm, and short eyeliner brush. The website doesn't say what it's made out of, but I think it's horse or pony hair. I tried it out a couple times with eyeshadow to line my upper lash line. It applies alright. It doesn't give a pigmented finish right off the bat, so I had to re-dip and apply several times. I tried dragging it out as well as dabbing it along the lash line. It was kind of soft at first, but hurt the more I used it. So beware if you have sensitive skin, this will probably hurt a lot if you ever get it. Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. See you in my next video. Bye!